Hi there, welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. We do a little bit of everything around here, and today we are talking about the state of Pennsylvania, who was founded by a man by the name of William Penn. It's one of the more interesting stories, I think, in American history. This guy, William Penn, we've talked a lot on this channel about destiny, how there's just things that line up for certain people who are here on earth to accomplish great things. And I would say that would be true of this guy by the name of William Penn. Well, how did it all begin? He was born in 1644 during the reign of Charles I in England. Okay? I've told you in our last video that Charles I was a tyrant, a horrible, horrible tyrant who taxed the people of England practically to death. And finally, people got so tired of it that they overthrew King Charles I and they executed him. They killed him in 1649. Taxes are the source of a lot of problems in society. We need taxes because they allow for individual people to contribute to the greater good. So things like highways can be built. Do you follow me? Otherwise, we wouldn't have any infrastructure like airports, highways, sewers, water systems, public, electricity, things like this. We're in schools, we require taxes to pay for things that individual people cannot build by themselves. That's how we fund the government. However, they become so high that it gets to the point where people get extremely angry because most of what they make ends up going to others, to the government. And it just doesn't sit well with people when they work all day, all week long, all day long, all week long, all month long, all year long, and they don't get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Well, King Charles I, he taxed the people so much, and it didn't even go to the greater public good. It just went to him. People got tired of it and they killed him off. A guy came to the power by the name of Oliver Cromwell, who hated Charles I. The only problem was he was even worse of a tyrant than Charles I. He died in 1658, and there was a time of great difficulty in England because there was no king to replace Oliver Cromwell after he kicked the bucket, and nobody really knew what to do. The son of Charles I was named Charles II, and he had spent years basically roaming around Europe trying to not get killed by Oliver Cromwell. And finally, there was a naval captain by the name of Sir William Penn Sr. He organized a fleet of naval ships to go over to the Netherlands, and they found Charles II, and they brought him back to England and restored the throne. They put him back as king. This was a huge debt, that Charles II owed to this naval captain, William Penn. Without him, he would not have been able to get back to become king. So there was basically what you would say in today's money would be like $5 million that William Penn used to organize the Navy of his own money and go get Charles and restore him to the throne. Do you follow me? Well, this guy, the naval captain, Sir William Penn, he had a son who was also named William Penn Jr. basically. And this son was an extremely unusual boy. Okay, when he was 11 years old, he had a spiritual experience where he felt like the whole entire room became bathed in some sort of glorious light. He had a spiritual experience of the divine right there in his room, and the light was in him and the light was all around him. He was in what you'd call a spiritual ecstasy, okay? Very unusual boy. He had these spiritual experiences. And a couple of years later, when he was 13, there was a Quaker missionary who came to the family home and preached to the family about this inner light that the Quakers believed in, that everybody had some of the glory of God within them, and that it could be experienced. And William Penn, the boy, William Penn Jr., he listened to this, and he knew that this Quaker missionary was talking like his language, because he had had this experience of this inner light and this light all around him. He'd had a direct experience of the divine, okay? Quakers were an interesting group of kind of religious rebels who believed in direct communion with God. You didn't need a priest. You didn't need, a bishop. You could experience God directly. That's how they believed. And they believed that all people were equal, and they believed in peace, basically, and nonviolence. And they did not really agree with the Church of England or the Catholic Church, which was basically like a hierarchy of priests and bishops and, powerful people within the church and the government. Quakers believed in a direct individual experience of God for every person. And there was a lot of hatred really between the Church of England and these Quakers, because the Quakers really, even though they believed in peace, they were very disrespectful of the traditional church. They would interrupt their services, make fun of the priests and the bishops. They were hated by the Anglican Church. They had very strong beliefs in the individual experience of God. Well, this kid, William Penn, he grew up, a teenager and everything, and went off to school. And when he was like 22 years old or so, he reconnected with this Quaker missionary who he had met when he was 13. And he began to listen to his teachings. And the main core of this Quaker missionary's teachings was that there is a faith, I'll write it up on the screen. There is a faith that overcomes the world. If there's a faith that's more powerful than the world. And then there is a faith that is kind of overcome by the world and beaten down by the world. And you kind of lose your faith. The world kind of beats you. And you kind of just join up with the world. Do you follow me? You kind of got to pick one or the other. There's a faith that is greater than the world that you have, or you have more faith in the world than you do your own faith. And you kind of more or less give in to the world. And William Penn was so hugely affected by this message of this bishop, this missionary, that he converted to the Quaker faith when he was 22. This outraged his father. His father was what you call an aristocrat. He was a very, very powerful man in the government and in society. He got so mad at William Penn that he beat him up and threw him out of the house. His own son said, "You are out of here. I don't ever want to see you again." And wouldn't let him have anything. Just get out. It's a huge crisis for this kid, William Penn, and he went and lived with Quakers and practiced his religion and began to openly criticize the Church of England and write papers and stuff. He was an educated young man, and he made sermons and stuff against the Church of England. He was a radical. Well, he was arrested for his views, and he was finally thrown into prison in a tower in London, England. And in that tower, he wrote his most famous book, which was called No Cross, No Crown. It meant that if you didn't follow the teachings of Jesus and really take up your cross and follow Jesus, then you were not going to have the glory of God, the crown, the spiritual crown, not the crown of like a king, but the crown of a spiritual king. Do you follow me? He preached about and he wrote about following Jesus directly, not just by going to church, but really living the life of Jesus. Do you follow me? Well, he kept this up for almost a year. I believe he was imprisoned in this tower for 8 months. And finally, his father just couldn't take it anymore, and he protested to the authorities and said, "Please let my son out. He's just so strong-willed, and he's so different. He's never going to quit. He'll stay up there for the rest of his life if he has to. You got to let him out." Well, this led, when William Penn Jr. got let out. He went right back to what he was doing, preaching and interrupting the Church of England and their services. He was a radical, and they got so mad that they put him on trial again. And it was one of the more famous trials in England at that time, because they basically forced the jury. A jury is a group of 12 people who listen to the case and decide whether or not the person is guilty or innocent. And they said, we demand that you find this kid, William Penn, guilty. And to force you to do it, we're going to make you stay in your room at the courthouse with no food, no water, and no toilet. They still would not convict William Penn as guilty, even though they kept him in there with no food, no water, and no toilet for 2 days. Well, this kid, William Penn, was a real problem. And after this trial, his father became gravely ill, the naval captain, and he was on his deathbed, dying, and he and William Penn Jr., they reconciled with each other. What does that mean? It means they told each other that they loved each other. And the older William Penn, the Navy captain, said, "You know what? I respect you, son, for your convictions. I'm proud of you." It was a big deal. And then the old man died. Well, the King of England, Charles II, just wanted to be rid of this kid, William Penn. Just get rid of him, because he was stirring up so much trouble in society. In the court system now, in the church, he wasn't going to have it. He says, "I owe your old man, the Navy captain, $5 million. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a huge piece of land in America, and I want you to get out of England and just go over there and deal with it." And so he gave him what is now today a huge state in America called Pennsylvania, okay? Named after William Penn, Pennsylvania, okay? William Penn went there, I believe it was in the year 1682. The ship that he went on, there was an outbreak of smallpox on the ship. A third of the people on the ship died on the way to America. Over 50-day voyage to America. He got off the ship and went to his new land. He was a wealthy person because his dad had so much money when he died and passed it on to him. And he went and set up this new state. He called the city, the capital, Philadelphia, which means the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. There's a huge statue of him there in Philadelphia. And you know, it's very interesting. William Penn got along very well with the Native Americans. He set up this state which had everything was free in terms of religious freedom. There was no persecution of any people who wanted to do any kind of different religion or anything. The Amish people set up shop there in Pennsylvania because they could do their thing and not be persecuted. They're there to this day, a lot of them. And, it's very interesting. William Penn died without any money. He was penniless. He essentially had given everything away. He had given the entire state away by the time he died. And is one of the more interesting figures in all of American history.